We are building a model railway from scratch, and in this episode, we have already reached the point where we can digitally turn out the signals and the turnouts. In the last episode, I showed how we can turn out such a turnout electrically and digitally. There is now a turnout decoder installed and a turnout drive, and it's constructed so this turnout can always be cleaned up again. That means if you're playing with the system on the carpet now, then you can take it apart, because the decoder is down here with the soft drive, so you can put it away again. And that's exactly what we're going to do now with the signals. I once brought a lot of signals that you can buy from Märklin. And also this signal, which is currently here, which I have now connected, can be easily clicked under the turnout, or rather not under the turnout, but under the track. Then there is indeed such a small plate here, and you can actually place that directly under this C-track. I'll just take a moment to do this real quick over here on the side, okay? So essentially the other way around. And then the record is already on here, and now we can simply slide the signal in here, depending on which side of the track it is supposed to stand. And then this is also solidly and securely connected with the simply give a single click, and then it's included. So reverse pause. But it goes both ways, I believe. So now it's fixed, and now you can also dismantle it accordingly with the track and can reshape it, and then, for example, put it on the shelf until you want to build your railway again next time. So, what signals do we have now? There's a lot here I've brought, because there are many things one should pay attention to when riding the real train as well. When's a train allowed to go where? I've now brought this signal, and you see, I have a second one with me. That looks almost precisely the same, only now one of them has a single wing, and interestingly enough, the other one has two wings here. And then I brought another one here, for example. That looks like a little ladle down there. That also comes with two such small things again. And I have another one here. It's a bit simpler. That again just has one of those discs at the front, which can then be displayed. And of course, there are also modern signals, such as these here. These are then light signals. And here you can actually observe two signals at once. Namely, this principal signal up here, a main signal with a light distance signal down here. That means here one would also immediately see as a train driver that one is not allowed to proceed because the next signal is red. So you'd see that here at such a signal. Quite a lot, and I'll now show you in this video how to connect them and which signal could look good on such a track at which point, as close to the original as possible. If I'm not completely accurate, please correct me in the comments, as I'm not a trained locomotive driver. I'm only doing this on the small Märklin, but don't say it wasn't right. Feel free to correct it in the comments. So, this signal here is certainly a main signal. And interestingly, this signal can stand anywhere along the track, actually even in places where there is no turnout at all. I'm now deliberately moving the turnout away so you can see it. So if that's standing somewhere on the open track, it always stands to the right of the track, then it would just stand here, and then the train knows it just has to stop here. It's not allowed to continue driving. Then our signal is simply on red. Train stops. We need a train. Choo-choo. Let's just take a little cart, and he knows. It doesn't go any further here, because the signal is red here. If the train has passed through green, then the signal behind the train could immediately turn back to red, because now the track here is occupied. The next train knows, I have to stop here. So, now we have a special situation, because just now we had a turnout right here at this spot. So we need this signal at a completely different place. We can certainly place that somewhere else now. We can now put that behind it in this position, because it's quite tidy there. Indeed. That would now indeed be our primary signal. And interestingly, it could now comfortably stand somewhere back there, right on the open track. Let's carefully put it over there, then it's all tidied up nicely, and now we just need to take this particular track right here. Now I've gotten mixed up with all the tracks. That's correct in terms of length? Exactly. We'll just put that there now and add the turnout. And now we would need a different signal here. Now this signal with the two wings would stand here at the turnout. Because here we have a different situation. The train could also stop here now, because either there is a carriage standing here and the train is not allowed to turn left, or because another train is still standing in front of here. Then the train is not allowed to drive at all, and then the signal would now be set correctly just as it is. Now whoosh, absolutely nothing can drive. So if a wing goes up now, then our train should be able to go straight through. That means now the turnout should indeed be set to green, and then the train should be perfectly able to go straight through if the upper wing is up. And then there's another situation. The lower wing is to the side and the upper wing is upwards. Means down, no, up, yes. And that would essentially mean our track is clear here and now. The train is fully permitted to drive slowly, in a careful manner, to the left and onto this particular siding. So it would then be really realistic and true to the original, what we would have here now. Now theoretically, one could also place a signal here on the other side. But it wouldn't look like this here. It'd be, for example, a track closure signal one could take. It would look something like this here. If it were from the modern world, what we have here, then one would also know, you can't go in here, I'm not allowed to drive in from the outside siding. Something like that could be placed on the other side here to ensure a track lock signal also comes from that side. But it would be a different era. One is a bit older, from ancient times, from the railway pasts. And the other would be a bit like the railwayman's gift. So that's roughly how you'd set it up. And there are a lot of signals. Look here, I brought another. Here are the instructions, as they work very similarly, the signals. Then you see, we just had that. That's what we saw. They are available with lattice mast, normal mast. And then there are those that are actually consolidated here again, so that one could then also place this signal on this side from the turnout. So basically, if it were standing like that, then it'd be combined, it'd be controlled with both wings. That is then a combined signal. That's a science in itself, and that's why it's also a whole profession that one can learn as a train driver. In that respect, it's fun to link the signals on the model railway so it mirrors the prototype. So, now I have actually brought another signal with me. I'll unpack this now, and that indeed is an advanced signal. If such a locomotive goes faster and then realizes, oh, there's a signal, I must stop quickly for an emergency brake, it's silly. That's precisely why, on the railway system, there are what are so-called distant signals. These preliminary signals, in essence, then appear to look something quite like this here. So proceed with great care, very carefully. So, here we have an advanced signal. And where does this stand now? This would be a preliminary signal for such a turnout situation, because it informs the locomotive driver, indeed a few kilometers before, a few hundred meters before, for example at this point. Attention, a signal is coming at some point. You can mentally prepare yourself now that this signal will either indicate that it is completely red, or the signal will say you are allowed to go straight ahead, or the signal says you may turn left. Exactly this would also be indicated by the distance signal on the side. So one can install this now on a system on the side. Per the model, one needs to check the space available. It's a few hundred meters before that. Now we don't have a few hundred meters to scale here, so a small facility with an oval, but for example, you could attach it on the side, then make a little embankment around it, then it looks quite cute. And now you can indeed combine the two as well. That means I can also set it up so that when I later turn out the signals with my mobile station, both of the signals are turnouted at the exact same time, seamlessly. That one has the same signal aspect, both at the distance signal and at the main signal. This can be done by setting it to the identical address, for example. That would then be the easiest way, that if we press on red-green here now, then both signals would be turnouted at the same time. We can do that now, it's not hard. Then I can show you how to connect a signal on this occasion. So, now I've unpacked too much. Regardless, let's set it aside. Having set the package aside from the start due to its contents, specifically this, to show you. So no problem, everything is operational. Here we have the cables fully plugged in now for such a signal, and there is a whole bunch of cables in there. One can control a model railway in a variety of ways, or play with it in a variety of ways as well. The simplest, most straightforward option is to just connect the signal, and then it either wobbles or it simply lights up. And you yourselves as train drivers must indeed say, now I'm driving a bit slower, now I genuinely have to stop. That would actually be the maximum fun of the game involved. If you say, okay, the signal is red, I take my mobile station in my hand and just don't go any further here. I brake nicely in a model-like manner. Option 2 features more cables, alongside insulation tapes, flaps, and what's known as center conductor insulators. Simply turn off the power. Signal turns red, then at this point on the track, for example, placing this here should cut electricity. If no electricity flows, the locomotive thinks, how can I continue driving? I have no electricity anymore. Just stops abruptly. This is a very, very simple electrical circuit. That's not new. In the past, they did the same by turning off power on the electric railway. And then the story just runs out of power here, and then the train doesn't go any further. But there is more to it. One could say it should decelerate realistically. Do I have something like this? I believe something like that's in the workshop. I still possess a brake module somewhere, I'm certain. No, not here at this moment. But there are small modules, small boxes, you can screw in between. Then the train decelerates slowly. That means it starts to slow down here at the front until the locomotive comes to a stop here. Then you have 3 tracks. We've explained everything on the Märklin YouTube channel. There you see we turn out a track off. I'll quickly link videos in comments. There, see how to convert 3 tracks into a braking section. And of course, there are people moving in that direction with something like this, a large control unit, where a computer can be connected. Then software can say, wow, here at the rail, it should start like this and that. So you see, you can get started super easily and then really go into great detail until it almost looks like what you know from Miniature Wonderland in Hamburg. We're going to keep it really simple. We drive ourselves. For that, a single cable's needed, this one here in my hands. That means we can put everything else aside for now. And now we'll just take that in hand, first untwist the little cable tie, and then we see we have 2 nice ends of this cable. Specifically, the one end, this particular end here, now goes directly into the signal, without any interruptions or deviations. This is relatively self-explanatory. Although there are 3 sockets at the back, like building blocks, only one fits. Ensure you check the small peg on the side. This notch is at the bottom or the top. I hope you can recognize that a little bit. And we'll put that in there now. And then our signal is already more around. So I showed it, works on one side, then connected it to the camera wrongly, sides reversed. So here it goes, right on the side. This is for 2, this is for 3 such pins, and that's where it goes in. So, if it doesn't fit, it's wrong anyway. Now it's more or less already connected correctly. Now the signal just needs power. And we make electricity very simple. We take that one from the track. Here, you see 2 small flat plug sleeves, which are these things. We can push them under a rail now. It doesn't matter where. You can do it at any point. And could simply get power from the rail. I'll make this brief by taking a track like this now. And just take this here for a thorough test. And say, this would indeed have to go right under here. The red cable, without exception, is always routed beneath the B in Märklin. And consistently, the brown cable is always placed beneath the 0 with Märklin. So, and now we really need to connect this particular rail, or indeed this specific track, with the oval layout. Then it also has electricity. We can just do that here, on the side. That's nicely free right now. So, let's take a brief pause on the facility. And then we can simply position it underneath here. We can certainly coil up the cables a bit later. Perhaps we could also put some crepe tape underneath for the carpet track. And now my signal is already connected to the power source. You can't see it right now because it's currently turned off, but rest assured, it would already be correctly connected. And now we take this little booklet right here and simply look up how we can effectively control this particular signal with this mobile station. This is now very, very simple, because there is simply a small table in the back and it has so-called addresses on it. Actually works just the same as you've already seen in our turnout video. Here, the addresses are marked, and for each address, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there is a different DIP turnout position here below on this mouse piano. You already saw that in the turnout video. There is a decoder under the turnout, and there's exactly the same decoder down here in the signal as well. It's a bit hidden here, right in this small box, and now we just have to see which specific signal should get which precise address. Very important with such a signal, it has two addresses right away, because we can turn out one signal for one position and the other signal for the other. So we have to think about what addresses we still have available. I now have my turnout here at address 1, which I can turn out here. So, this is my number 1, it's already taken. My number 2 is my distinct signal back there on the side, that's gently bobbing along. So, my address number 4 is still currently available, and interestingly, my address number 5 is also still available. That means, on this side here, on the mobile communication station, I would actually now have, for instance, address 4 and 5 would now be free here. We could do that now, for example, by saying it's the 4 and the 5. However, we only need to set the 4 on the DIP turnout as it automatically searches for the next consecutive one. So, let's turn it around. Signal, let's turn off the system. And now it gets a bit detailed. Now we have to take a closer look with our eyes. Ensure you don't bend the signal on the floor. When doing that, it looks there, so raise your hands higher. It's the opposite. So now, everyone has gone down, except for the very first one and the very last one, still positioned at the top. And interestingly enough, this would now be recognized as address number 1, according to the provided instructions. But now, we actually want to have a distinct address. We precisely want to have the address 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So the first is, and the fourth dip shine, they're up there. So we'll do the first. Up there, he is, 2, 3, and the fourth. So, let's carefully count everyone once again, ensuring we haven't missed anyone at all in our thorough tally. 1 up, 2, 3 down, 4 is up on the side. Maybe you can somewhat recognize it here on the side. So this is where you adjust it. If I did it wrong, I'll just do it again. Can't break like that. So, now let's try it out. And if I now turn the power back on and take my mobile station in hand, then one should actually immediately see how address 4 or address 5 is now being turnouted. Indeed. And, quite interestingly, it seems that I didn't manage to execute it correctly. We'll check the cause again, likely a misclick. So, let's check what the cause was, and then we see here again a very important note in the instruction manual. Look, it says here below that on is DCC and off is MM. And the 10th one, it was also upwards, it was on ON. That means, essentially, I have transitioned my signal to the DCC decoder mode effectively. It's not active on my mobile station now. It uses the Märklin Motorola protocol. The signals can do both, so we carefully put it back down to the off position here, as specified in the instructions. You see, I like doing it wrong in videos first, so you see why it works for Michael and not me. It doesn't always work for me either. That's why we check the reason. Now going back to the 4 and 5, turning the stop on again to see if I was smart enough this time. So, not working. What is the reason? Look, I looked in the wrong table. That is also key. Here, the 1 and the 4 were clearly visible. But indeed, this is the keyboard for this older Märklin control panel here. This very keyboard. But here it would have been correct, see address 4. Check the correct table, meaning the third dip turnout must be up, not 1 and 4. So please be careful not to slip in line, because otherwise it's wrong and won't work for you, just as it didn't for me just now. So then we take the 1 down and the 3. Upwards 1, 2 and the 3 upwards. So now you can see it again. So here the DIP turnouts are hopefully set correctly now. So, all roads lead upwards, and sometimes the fifth road also leads to operating the signal correctly. Now try. Press the stop button. And finally, now it works. So now we have set everything up correctly. So, make sure that you pay close attention to whether the DCC address or the Märklin Motorola address is set. This is the 10th DIP turnout. Make sure you don't slip in line. Here, turn left or down, so you set the DIP turnout right, as that's usually the solution. So, now we have here, at address number 5, which we are already in the process of turnouting here, and if we take the next one, then we can quite nicely move the second wing to this location. I'll show it again in a close-up. So either wing 1 or just this one then. That looks nice, doesn't it? So, you've remembered what is what. Let's take another look. This would indeed be absolutely nothing is allowed to pass through, and now we are diligently doing it. Now, the locomotive may very slowly turn to the left. So our track layout would now be almost perfect, and now we can lift this up briefly and lower the signal, and we can now connect this to the side. So, now we can take the next signal, the distance signal, and set it up the same way. Now that I have it so nicely in hand, I'll just go down into the decoder and take another look at it. So, here you see again at the mouse piano, the 10 would still be up. We can bring it down again right away. That would be this Märklin Motorola protocol. We'll also bring down the 1 right away. And then we say the 3 must go up. So I just did it quickly so that I can see. So everyone down except for the 3. And now we'll proceed to connect this one just like we've done with the others. Currently, we're in need of another cable. I had that one stored back there in the original packaging, indeed. In the other, indeed, therefore. Look, there's more inside. We can take another look. Maybe you don't want to build a carpet track. Perhaps you want to aim high. And then, you indeed have something like this here. Look. Then you can also attach the signal beneath the system. Then, you basically make a hole in your board, letting it stick out nicely at the top. Then you also don't have this big concrete base, so to speak, but have it nicely screwed onto the system under the board. And then, I'll show it to you here on the camera, then it can really nicely stick out on the side here. Can also do crafts. Maybe we'll do that for a few more days. Let's see. So now we take the cable out of here again. We'll briefly put the paper aside, then you'll see more. And let's wrap that up briefly. So, oh, there are indeed signs included too. And additionally, some more records, so really nice embellishment. Hole fitting parts for the many, intricate details on the track, complete with stickers as well, are included. So then, you can actually go all out. So the same fundamental principle indeed applies to this cable as well. One comes to the track and the other comes onto the rail. I'm going to turn off the power to my model railway for a moment, and this time I'll explain it to you properly right away. Look here. Here are those 3 sockets again, designed for 2 and also for multiple pins. These are precisely the ones equipped with the 2 pins, and they just seamlessly go down here on the side now. It's easy. And accordingly, it is then also correct. And now we can set up this signal at another location. I'm going to gently advance my system forward a little now, so you can clearly see where the signal will be positioned in just a moment. We'll just do that now. I'll just do it shortly before now, so that it can be clearly seen right here for the example. In the correct model, indeed, that would necessarily have to be a bit further away then. And now we have certainly noticed it. Red, as it turned out, was indeed back on the bench. Here, and brown comes to the 0, we must also show CCAN on 0. So, push it in firmly to avoid loss. You can also solder it with a soldering iron if desired. So, essentially that mechanism operates just like that, and then quite seamlessly, it transitions back to the other track over here without any noticeable interruption. We'll fix cable clutter. And now, we have our distant signal here, alongside our main signal. Positioned closely, our two-wing signal is directly behind, ensuring optimal visibility for all. I've adjusted it. Now I can turn the power back on and you guys can start the game again. If it works, everything's fine. If not, I erred and must correct it immediately. So be it. Yes, and that's roughly how it would look on your model railway layout if you use these signals. And we can now beautifully also immediately stow them away under the track by mounting it here on the plate. And then we can attach this signal here at the front, for example. Maybe not in the curve, but it would work here too. Can we simply maneuver it back and forth a little? And we would also click the other signal under the plate. And could, for example, then lay it under this track here. And now we just take a bit of masking tape and simply stick the slightly too long cables under the tracks. Yes, now we've more signals left. For instance, we'd have a main signal with a distant one here. We could, for example, install that here on the system instead. So depending on whether you want to build a facility with a somewhat older era, like this beautiful steam locomotive here, or whether you say you want to build a modern package with, for example, where do I have it? Ah, here, right in front of us, our magnificent ice. So, that would indeed be a different era, and accordingly, you would use either the light signals or the semaphore signals, depending on what you prefer on your layout. I would certainly say, in the next episode, it's about time we start exploring the model world a bit more and actually begin to carefully formulate the track plan. What's our goal? A maintenance depot, construction site, or beautiful mountain facility? There we always have to plan a bit, and it's more like summer, more like autumn, or more like winter. So stay tuned for the next videos.